Plus 49.
Bienvenidos to another edition of Plus 49. I am Sigrid Arteaga. I am thrilled to have you with us for another special episode. Today, we're going into a topic that is very close to my heart because beyond being a journalist, a consultant, a storyteller, or whatever thing I'm doing over the week, I'm also a dog mom to Baloo. He's my little dachshund. And if you're a pet owner, or you're thinking about becoming a pet owner, you will be more than happy to hear today's guest. He is Sufyan. He's the founder of HonestDogs. But that's not all. Coming up, we're also spotlighting some of the week's hottest events, break down the top stories of the past few days, which are definitely the elections on the 23rd of February, and of course, dive into our favorite segment, Ask a German. So, let's start. For our first segment, let's go into the news, covering the stories that matter to our international community in Germany. And yes, we're talking about the elections. We start with a major political development. The German Bundestag has voted in favor of stricter immigration laws, a decision that some are calling a historical turning point. Last week, CDU leader Friedrich Merz brought two motions to the floor proposing a 5-point plan that includes permanent border controls, stricter entry requirements, and even detention centers for those awaiting deportation. The motion narrowly passed with 348 votes in favor and 345 against, sparking intense debate across Germany. What does this actually mean? Well, the motion itself is not a law, so it's not legally binding. However, with Germany heading into elections in 2025 and the CDU leading the polls, the political landscape is shifting. If the CDU gains power, we could see a significant tightening of immigration and citizenship policies. The vote also raised concern about mainstream parties aligned with the far right, Alternative für Deutschland. For years, Germany's democratic parties have followed a firewall policy, refusing to cooperate with extremist groups. But with the CDU now voting alongside the AfD, Chancellor Scholz has called it an unforgivable mistake and warned that Germany's political future is at stake. We will be keeping an eye on this story in the coming months. But now, shifting to something a little bit lighter, let's talk about dry January. New data from the Federal Statistical Office shows that alcohol sales in Germany dropped by 50% in January compared to December. The movement, which started in the UK, has been gaining popularity here, encouraging people to take a break from drinking after the holiday season. But it's not just a trend. Germany's overall alcohol consumption has been steadily declining for years. While beer and wine are still cultural staples, more and more people are choosing alcohol-free alternatives or cutting back altogether. So, did you join Dry January this year? Let us know. As Germany gears up for the 2025 election on the 23rd of February, many expats and newcomers might find the country's political system a bit confusing, especially when it comes to how votes are counted and the roles of the chancellor and the president. So let's break it down. First, let's talk about how Germans vote. Unlike in some countries where people vote directly for their head of government, Germany has a parliamentary system. That means when Germans head to the polls, they do not directly vote for the next chancellor. Instead, they're voting for representatives in the Bundestag, meaning the federal parliament. Each voter gets 2 votes. The first vote, Erststimme, is for a direct candidate in their electoral district, similar to a local representative. The second vote, Zweitstimme, is for a political party. The second vote is crucial because it determines the overall makeup of the Bundestag and, ultimately, who gets to govern. Once all votes are counted, parties must form a coalition if no single party wins an outright majority. The largest party, often but not always the CDU or SPD, then negotiates with other parties to form a government. When an agreement is reached, the Bundestag votes to elect the Chancellor. Now, let's clear up a common misunderstanding. Who is in charge, the Chancellor or the President? Germany actually has both. The Chancellor, Bundeskanzler, is the head of the government and holds the real power. They oversee policies, lead the cabinet, and make key decisions affecting both domestic and foreign affairs. Right now, that's Olaf Scholz from the SPD. But as we mentioned earlier, CDU leader Friedrich Merz is the frontrunner for 2025. The president, Bundespräsident, is on the other hand more of a symbolic figure. Currently, that's Frank-Walter Steinmeier. The president represents Germany internationally, signs laws, and plays a role in appointing the chancellor, but they don't directly influence the daily politics. So, what is at stake in 2025 elections? Well, if the CDU wins, they will have the opportunity to push for a stricter immigration law, change some citizenship rules, and other conservative policies. But forming a coalition will be key. Who they partner with will determine how much power they actually have. The 2025 elections are significant because if the CDU wins, they will push for stricter immigration laws, changes to citizenship rules, and other conservative policies. However, forming a coalition will be crucial in determining how much power they have. I am very excited today for this interview because I'm a dog owner, and the person who we're interviewing today made something called HonestDog. And with us today is Sufyan. Yes, I think I said it right. Hello, Sufyan. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Happy to be here.
So let's start with the first question. Where are you from? How did you arrive in Berlin?
Yeah, I'm originally from Pakistan, and I came to Germany almost 9 years ago to do my bachelor's as the few places with free education for international students and also in English. And kind of navigated myself to Berlin. I originally came to Reutlingen. It's a small town close to Stuttgart. But the journey of Germany brought me to Berlin, which is a lot more home-like in some way.
So you came from Pakistan, probably a bigger city than Reutlingen.
Yes.
How was this for you? Because even for me, from 25 million people in Mexico City to 4 million, I feel like I'm in a little town. I'm not saying that to all my German friends because they do believe a little bit of an insult. But I think Berlin is bigger compared to where you arrived.
Yes. To be honest, for me, I'm introverted, and I was an athlete as well, and working sort of hard and having a disciplined routine. So if my gym was closed, university was closed, the dorm people were nice, I'm happy. I don't need I don't need a lot in life. So I was perfectly happy in Reutlingen.
That can be the slogan for Germany. You're an introverted, Germany is for you.
Yeah.
But okay, so you studied here your bachelor, and then slowly you came to Berlin and you started your own company. Tell us a little bit about HonestDog.
Yes. HonestDog started from this idea that why are dogs being sold on Kleinanzeigen? I mean, there are as many dogs in Germany as there are kids under 18. And people spend so much money on their dogs, but the way they come into this world and the way they're sold to their parents is via very intransparent marketplaces, classifieds like eBay Kleinanzeigen, and there has to be a better way. And because of the way they're sold, it became the third largest or most profitable illegal market in Europe after drugs and weapons. So there had to be a better platform, and that's where HonestDog came into account, where we essentially make sure that the future of dogs comes in a more wholesome, holistic way from good breeders and verified shelters to educated people who know it's not a house plant they're getting, but a commitment for the next decade or two.
I love how you said to their parents because, yes, I feel like a parent to my 11-year-old dachshund. How did you came to the idea of creating this marketplace?
So I grew up with dogs, a lot of dogs. I was in Pakistan. My dad was in the army. We moved around a lot. There were a lot of stray dogs, and somehow I was attracted to them. And then at some point, I wanted to always have a Labrador. My uncle got me a Labrador puppy, but unfortunately, it died a few weeks later of a virus that it should have been vaccinated for. I was 9, I didn't know, but it kind of broke me when I found out that it could have been prevented with a vaccine or with disinfecting. And that gave me a lot of guilt, which I used to learn a lot. I read over 100 books on dogs when I was 12. So then, when a couple years ago, 3 years ago, we found out that it's the third largest illegal market and it's sold on Kleinanzeigen, I wanted to build a better platform. And it seemed a simple enough concept. You make sure the supply side is good, you get the demand side, you connect them, and you take a transaction fee or a piece of cut from the transaction, and that's how you sustain yourself. In reality, it's a lot more complicated, each of these individual steps. But the idea, I think the pet market, especially the dog market, deserves a more wholesome way where it comes with COVID as well and dogs ending up in the shelters. I want to find a way. Is there any way that we can have no dogs in the shelter and all dogs come from a happy, healthy place? Because of the way dogs were bred in the last 150 years, they've also basically halved their lifespan and are much, much sicker than they should be. And it's preventable at the end of the day. And dogs can't speak for themselves. So, so how can we have better systems to ensure that dogs don't suffer unnecessarily because of something preventable? And and I wanted to do something about it, and wanting to start a company as well. This seemed like sort of two birds with one stone, have a positive impact while also starting a company, which was my goal for a long time.
Do you have a favorite dog or a breed?
Since being every day heads deep into dog breeds, or dog types, I don't have it anymore. Right now, it's more of a I don't know when I will get a dog, because I also believe that not everyone should get a dog, and especially with the crazy life in Berlin that I have as an entrepreneur, it's not something that I can do. So I'm kind of holding back the urges to live up to the standards of HonestDog and be responsible and not get a dog, and like also kind of be flexible in the approach of not looking necessarily for beauty standards or the way looks are, but when the moment is right, whatever feels right in that moment. But I do like dogs with pointy ears that look like wolves.
Well, then my dachshund is really not for you because he really has floppy ears.
Up the fluffy, the floppy ears, and it's always a little bit of a when we get a dog, it's going to be pointy, no floppy.
Having a dog in Germany is very different, at least from my experience in Mexico City. And I do believe that Berlin, it's a great place to have a dog, it changes a lot depending on where you are. But being here in Germany, seeing people with their dogs, sometimes without a leash, even though it's illegal at the moment in Berlin, but there's somehow of another feeling with dogs. For those who are thinking about getting a dog, what is the normal process through HonestDog to get a dog? And of course, what are the things they have to consider with Haftpflichtversicherung or, all that little small print we don't really understand after we get the dog?
Yes, I think the first thing that you need to, ideally, you do your research and you find out whether do you want to adopt or you want to get a puppy, or you can also get a puppy from a shelter. And I think for all people, they should try to adopt if they can, and go to the shelter. Shelters are great because they really vet you. They come to your home even to make sure that you're able to provide good care for the dog, and often just providing a lot of help. But there is also a high chance that you will not qualify essentially for a dog from a shelter, because there's a lot of demand actually, which people also don't realize, for dogs from shelters, and all the easier dogs get quickly taken, and then there are a lot of dogs that have been in the shelter for a long time that just cannot find a suitable home given their special needs. But if you can fit their special needs, that would be ideal. If you do want a puppy for whatever reason, or you do not qualify to get a dog from a shelter, then the next step is to really figure out the type of breed do you want. And ideally, you know the type of person you are. If you live in an apartment, how active you are. Do you have a family? Do you have kids? Do you like to travel a lot? Do you like to spend a lot of time taking care of the beautiful fur and coat and spend money on groomers if it's a poodle with curly hair that can cause problems at some point? So then you do figure out, okay, this is the right kind of breed for me. It's not too active, but it's also trainable, etc. And then you basically search on HonestDog, and you come to breeders and also shelter dogs. For every breed, we show puppies, also shelter dogs, and all the breeders that we have on our platform are very strictly assessed to make sure that they take into account the health and well-being of the puppy, from doing genetic tests on the parents and other kind of testing to how they're grown, to what conditions they grow up and they're bred. We do not allow breeders that breed on a mass scale, so it's a very private for people, and it's not their main source of income. Breeding is not something that you just scale up if it's working well or have more. It's a very decentralized, if you want to call it in business terms, process where if there is enough demand, then more everyday people should get involved to fulfill that demand. But you shouldn't breed and try to sell. It should be like, hey, there's a lot of demand, and then you match that demand with people who are already committed and educated. That's a very ambitious, but it's also one of the areas where we really want to work towards supply meets demand. There's never a puppy bred without already a potential home for them. And at the end of the day, shelters is a problem. It's like a fish net, and it's when it breaks, they end up in the shelter. Ideally, there are no dogs in the shelter. How can we build? And it's not going to come from the wild. Dogs have to come from some form of a control mechanism, which they call breeding. So it has a lot of negative reputation as well, which shouldn't be the case. This is the only way to have dogs come into this world, and everything else is somewhat of a problem that a lot of people are trying to fix. I mean, Germany has no stray dogs. All dogs that are come into Germany from Germany are somewhat bred responsibly or irresponsibly. That's a different aspect. And then you get in touch with the breeder, and the breeders are very, very selective as well. They're going to drill you. You're going to have multiple calls. You're going to visit them, and then you can bring your dog home. When you actually get a dog home, it's not too complicated. You have to pay the Hundesteuer. You have to get liability insurance, and depending on your state, a few more things, and depending on the breed as well, there's some special requirements. And yeah, get a health insurance, especially because dogs are not as healthy as you think they might be, especially after 150 years of not that responsible breeding. Our goal is also to make them healthier, so you won't need to spend more money on health insurance. But now, depending on the breed as well, it's highly recommended that you do get a health insurance as well. And yeah, I think once you have a dog, that's the most important part. The rest is details.
So, in your future, there's going to be a dog.
If life goes well, yes. If I can move out of the apartment and have more free time, two things.
You want a big dog.
Yes.
Yes. I love how people that grew up with dogs, they normally want big dogs. I grew up in a city, and I always had small dachshunds. And of course, for me, it was kind of like a thing to become a dachshund once I arrived in Berlin. And one of the things that I got from having a dog in Germany was that suddenly the world looked very differently because people actually were talking with me. So my first real German friends were friends because we met through a dog. And that changes a lot of the way you feel integrated into the society, and you have something in common to talk.
Mm-hmm. I remember I was pet sitting, and I was pet sitting an Australian Shepherd, and she was adorable. And the minute you go out on the streets, like everyone's like, "Come to me!" And it's such a different experience than the usual German behavior.
I think in Germany you come often more you get more welcome if you have a dog than if you have a kid. I know. I mean, of course, my friends who are parents are gonna kill me because of this, but I do. Somehow people are like, "Oh my god, look at that dog! It's so cute," and with kids are like, "Too loud." This is our last part of the conversation, and how I'm sorry, I'm still very shocked about dogs being the third most illegal market. When did you became aware of this?
The first time I became aware of this was when I was finishing my master's or doing my master's thesis. And this idea came like, hey, I've been in Germany 5 years. I might be able to finally, because again, when moving to Germany at 17, I had to leave my dog behind. I was like, maybe I can go into that again. And I did like 10 minutes of research and I was shocked. I thought Germany is the creme de la creme of dogs and with the history and so much. And at that time, my favorite breed was German Shepherd. And to find out that you can buy them on eBay like a used bike. um,
That's probably stolen. The bike, I mean, at least.
it's a problem with dogs too. A lot more in the UK than Germany, but still, it's a big problem with stolen dogs too. In any ways, it just seemed dystopian, and going more into it as well. So yeah, that's how this problem came to the conscious mind.
So, Sufyan, we want to be responsible parents, how they say it. I love it. What would you say to someone who is thinking about adopting a dog or buying a dog? What are the key things that you would like to transmit for them to understand if they do have all the possibilities for them to have a dog?
I think this is a very difficult thing to generalize because it really depends on the type of person, your circumstance. But the best thing you could probably do is talk to an expert that takes the well-being of parents, of the dogs, and also your fit into account. So don't it's emotional. Everyone knows that, but we had a dog expert and she was a dog trainer for 20 years, and she had a free service like, hey, if you're thinking about getting a dog, come to me, we can discuss, answer all the questions. And like two people did that in 20 years. So I think the first step is like, to talk to someone who is an expert to see what kind of dog fits you, so you can have the next 10 to 20 years of your life in a harmonious way. Because the reality is a dog does change your life just like a kid does, and people sometimes have to move out of the city because their dog cannot handle the city, and many other factors. So as much as it's emotional, to talk to someone who you can discuss your personal concerns with.
I'm just thinking about how at the moment it's very rainy outside and we're not in the minus degrees, but it's cold. It's not nice. And when you have a dog, it doesn't matter if it's raining, if it's snowing, or at any point what hour it is. You have to go outside. Even if they don't want to, you have to go outside. And that is one of the things that a lot of my friends really didn't consider after having the dog.
Yeah.
Maybe because they had kids and after at some point they stopped using diapers and they just went to the toilet just like any other person. But of course, like a dog will take you out of your warm bed every day for the next 20 years. So, Sufyan, thank you so much. Please visit your website, which is,
HonestDog.de.
and if you have any more questions, there's a place there that you can ask them and also send you an email.
Yes, you can always reach out to us at info@honestdog.de.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sufyan.
Thanks a lot.
Plus 49. Ask German.
So one thing that I wondered is when you do housewarming parties. I mean, I moved to Berlin 3 years ago, and recently, like in December, it was my seventh move from sublets to sublets, trying to find a place to live. And when I did a housewarming, a lot of people bought bread and salt, and I was wondering, like, how much bread can I consume? How much salt do I need? So I thought Germans are very practical. So would love to understand this cultural idea of bringing bread and salt to housewarmings.
If you've ever moved into a new home in Germany, you've likely experienced this. Friends, family, and even new neighbors arriving with the same gift: bread and salt. While it's a thoughtful and traditional gesture, you may quickly realize that you now have more salt than you'll ever need and enough bread to last for weeks. This housewarming present might also seem unusual at first, especially in an area where people often opt for wine, flowers, or home decor. But in Germany, giving bread and salt is more than just a kind gesture. It's a deep-rooted tradition symbolizing prosperity, stability, and good fortune in a new home. Each item carries a symbolic meaning, representing good wishes for the new homeowners. For instance, bread is a fundamental staple of life and symbolizes nourishment, security, and prosperity. By giving bread, the giver is wishing the recipient a home where they will never go hungry. Salt has long been associated with wealth, preservation, and protection. Together, bread and salt are seen as essential elements for a good life, offering sustenance, well-being, and protection in the new home. Unlike many other housewarming gifts, which can vary depending on the giver's relationship with the recipient, bread and salt are almost universally considered the default present for moving into a new home in Germany. Since it's such a widely known custom, many people assume that others will bring different gifts and that their own contribution of bread and salt will be a unique and meaningful gesture. The result? The new homeowner is suddenly in possession of multiple loaves of bread and an abundance of salt, far more than they could ever use. So, to avoid this abundance, there are some creative ways and twists you can make to personalize the gift while keeping the symbolic meaning intact. Here are a few ideas to modernize the tradition. For example, you could switch kitchen salt to bath salt. If the new homeowner has a bathtub, why not swap traditional salt for luxurious bath salts? This way, the symbolic meaning of salt remains, but with a practical and fun twist. And an alternative for bread would be beer. Germans often call their beer flüssiges Brot or liquid bread, so gifting a high-quality local beer can be a fun and well-received alternative. Ultimately, while you might not need 5 loaves of bread and several packs of salt, the tradition itself is a heartfelt way for people to wish you well in your new home.
And that is a wrap up for today's episode here of Plus 49. Thank you so much, Marlene, for making this show possible. And of course, to our guest this week, who is Sufyan from HonestDog. I will say it again, as a dog mom to Baloo, this was a very close conversation to my heart. And I really hope that it resonates with you and with all of the fellow pet lovers out there. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to catch us next time for more stories, insights, and discussions. Until then, take care and hasta la próxima.